pretty nice. So,
all right, here we are, day 2 out at OPFOB for our 22 nights of Light the Fire, where fellow veterans and first responders sit around. We tell a bunch of lies, have a bunch of stories, enjoy ourselves, and really try to create that framework for our fellow veterans that maybe are struggling. The reason we're doing this for 22 nights is 22 has kind of become known as the number of, the traditional number, and I say that for a reason, of how many veterans commit suicide every day. The number is actually closer to 33 from what we understand. So we're not doing a good job. We're trending in the wrong direction. And our hope is places like here at OPFOB, we can create a space that veterans and first responders can just be. Get a chance to tell jokes and say all those inappropriate things that we probably can't do out in society. And maybe find one of those vets that's struggling and that, maybe staying at home too long. We all know that the idle mind's the devil's workshop. And if we can get them out here in this beautiful 278 acre property where we have sporting clays, we have rifle ranges, we have hunting, we have just a whole plethora of great activities to be around. So I'm really excited. We've got 2 very special guests here tonight. The first one to my right is Amy. Amy is a fellow firefighter. She's currently actively serving as a firefighter, and she'll tell you a little bit about herself here in a second. As you know, me being a former firefighter, I always have a special kinship to my brother and sister firefighters. Then over to my right here is Ron West, who's a fellow Devil Dog. So I'm surrounded by all my peeps here. I got the firefighters and I've got the Devil Dog. So Ron, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement here at OPFOB.
Well, first off, I spent 22 years in the Marine Corps, retired in 1985. So I'm old. I'm a Vietnam era veteran. I was Vietnam 68 and 69. I am married to the love of my life for 57 years. If you can believe that, I can't believe it. But I've been involved with OPFOB actually when it was J.R. Brown, our founders. It was still in his head. It hadn't come out yet. And we were going through the PGA Hope program together at Paris Island. He told me about this dream that he had. And boy, was I surprised when he called me and says, we found a piece of property. So I have been involved with JR and OPFOB since day one, really. So since we opened the place up, before there was ever a blade of grass cut or anything done here.
And for our listeners, you're how old?
77.
77 years old. JR is, how old is he?
For about 37, 38.
37. So we're talking about a 40-year difference here.
Yeah.
What was that like to connect with a fellow Marine that's 40 years your junior?
Because of JR's desire for what's in his heart, what he wanted to happen with OPFOB, that's also in my heart because of the Vietnam veterans we've lost. Not only did we lost here in Vietnam, but to suicide as well. And I have one that was in my unit while I was in Vietnam that actually took his life while we were in Vietnam. He had a lot of struggles, and he just, and that's what he did. And I don't want to go into what his name is because that's private information, and I wouldn't want to for his vet to get out for him or not for him, but his family would probably could possibly hear this. But the big thing is that we, doesn't make any difference what our age group is. These young guys that have come back from Afghanistan and Iraq, who are right now feeling the way we felt when we came back from Vietnam, because it just got shut down, just like we got shut down in Vietnam.
Well, and the connection that we have, you and I have never met each other until I came out of this property, and instantly we're brothers. Yep. Even though, again, never got the chance to serve together, didn't know each other, but there's that bond that you have that's very sacred, both with the Marines, the fire service, and all the different branches. When you suffer together and you bleed together, there's a connection there that most people just can't understand.
And I get that. And my wife tells me, she says, when I got involved with OPFOB, we had these discussions about saying no. When I got involved with OPFOB, she says, I don't care if you do anything else that you were doing in the past. You can't give up OPFOB. It's not something you can give up. It means too much for you. It means too much for her, too, because we live this life together. We're a family together.
Yeah, the spouse suffers sometimes more than the veteran does.
Yeah, especially when that day comes and they find out that his life is no longer, or her life is no longer there because they couldn't cope with all the issues. And if we can make a difference here with one, that's great. But one's not enough.
Absolutely.
It's like you said, the number has gone from 22 into the low 30s now. What studies have been done recently is a lot of that is the Afghan and Iraqi guys that came back are adding to that number because of the same thing that they're dealing with, having come back from over there.
So I've got an interesting statistic that you both might know. They've done an analysis in South Carolina of what the demographic is of the typical military veteran that commits suicide. What do you think their age is?
I would say probably in the range from 23 to 33 or 35.
And what would you say?
I would say it's a little bit higher than that. Maybe 28 to 35.
It's actually 72 years old.
Really?
The average demographic is a 72-year-old white male that kills himself with a pistol in a woods or wooded area approximately 3 to 5 miles from their house. I'm not 100% sure on those exact statistics, but it's pretty close within that region. And I think what we're finding, and I think you're a perfect example of this, the guys that served in Vietnam, when they came back, there was no support system. Matter of fact, it was the opposite. What you went through, I can't even imagine. I mean, to see the parades and everybody saying thank you for your service and getting you 10% off is so everywhere now. We just think that's the way it used to be, always been.
It wasn't that way. It was not that way.
So what happens? We take all that horrible stress and emotions and we bury it deep down into this box.
That's right.
And we lock it in there. And the longer we hold it in there, the more that causes other problems, like a cancer being trapped.
Well, and I think a big thing for that generation too is we didn't talk about our feelings.
Exactly, that's another
we
thing.
We don't talk about our feelings. Yeah. What happened there? My dad was Vietnam. He was Navy, and I don't know anything he did over there. I don't know anything about it. I know he was on his ship. I know he went over to the Philippines, but outside of that, my dad never talked about it.
No.
And
when you don't talk about it, now what happens a lot of times, they'll talk about it with their buddies.
Right. They would sit every Saturday night, have their cigars and their beer.
So here we have JR, who lost quite a few of his buddies in Iraq and Afghanistan, both in the Marine Corps and Blackwater. He gets out here, loses even more of his buddies to suicide after he served and were in combat, and says, I want to create this special place. Now, it's my understanding the original focus was just on the Iraq and Afghanistan vets. But what we started to find out that's so beautiful is we're starting to get a couple Korean War vets, Vietnam vets, Desert Storm era vets that are out there. And at first, when I sat back and observed it, I thought that you guys were helping them. But what it is, it's a circle. By you helping them, they're helping you. And it's almost like when you look at the 12 steps of AA, the final step is you have to help somebody else out. And I think that's the most beautiful thing that I've experienced, is watching this magic that happens between the Vietnam era vets, the non-combat era vets, the Afghan and Afghanistan, that we're all helping each other out.
Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit about what I do.
Please.
So I'm actually with Fight the War Within Foundation. We're based out of Savannah. We're going on our second year as a 501c3 nonprofit. We're all volunteer organization. And what we do is we connect people with mental health resources. Our main focus is on veterans and first responders. So the founder of our organization actually lost her husband to the 22-day epidemic. But before that, myself personally, I was already involved. I've been working with first responders with PTSD awareness and support for about 6 years now. I didn't know anything about it when I first started. After I got into it, it's huge. More first responders die on suicide than they do in the line of duty.
And no one talks about it.
Nobody talks about it. They're not covered under workman's comp.
It's not
for their
considered
PTSD.
a line of duty.
It's not a line of duty. No, it's not. PTSD doesn't happen. If you take time, if you have to take a mental health day, you're taking it on your dying.
Sick day.
Yeah, wow. It's a sick day. And then there's the stigma of it. And so that's what we've been combating these past few years, is trying to fight that stigma, trying to bring awareness, and trying to give outside resources to people who don't want to talk to anybody inside the organizations.
So PTSD is not limited just to the soldiers and Marines and fire officials.
It's not limited to first responders, period.
Anybody that has a traumatic event. So you and I both have served as a firefighter. What I find is, and in my small community where I serve, when we had a pretty significant car accident, the people a year or two later, you'd see them out, there's something not right there. And it was that traumatic event that they experienced that they remember each time they get in the car and they have that other area.
Right.
As
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, as firefighters and police officers, we're seeing innocent victims that usually didn't choose to be put in that. In combat, there's an expectation you guys are battling
taught.
that.
Yeah,
Sure.
you're taught you're going to see some really bad
Right,
stuff.
you're gonna see some
Yeah.
things.
Well, see, in the fire and police and stuff, I don't know about police. I can speak for the fire service. They train us, they drill it into us, we got to be physically fit. You have got to be physically fit to be a firefighter. But what they don't drill into is the mental health
Oh,
aspect
goodness.
of it. They don't tell you you need to talk to your buddies, talk to your partners, things like that. But like you said with this, one of the things we found is huge is peer support.
Sure.
So we've, my organization I used to run, we did a lot of peer support. We would do a retreat and bring them all together in a group. Once a year, we would bring a group together, take them to Tennessee, take them fishing, things like that. And it was just huge. And we did 4 trips, but now as Fight the War Within Foundation, we try to do the same thing. We do a kayak paddle. We've come out here several times with groups. You know, JR is just, what he's doing out here is just amazing. It's amazing. And we were very fortunate to be able to meet up with him and come out here and be able to send people out here.
And the
This
lives
is
that
another resource.
the lives that he's saving, we don't even know.
Yeah.
Because it's somebody that maybe just came out here one night and was thinking maybe that's the night that they're gonna do it. And just the mere fact of being around their friends and having that connection, I love hearing the stories of
Well,
the
it's you know,
vets
I'm not
before us.
alone. They come out to these events that we do, that JR does, and they find out I'm not the only one that thinks this way. And that's
Well, you know, you're talking
huge.
about a while ago about an accident on Mother's Day. Trying to think of the year. I've been here 10 years, so it's been at least 12, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. Longer than that, because I was still working for a living when that happened. But my wife was going to my son's house from Jasper, Georgia to Dallas, Georgia. And it was a Sunday, of course, Mother's Day, and she's driving to his house, I'm working. And she, a van turns in front of her, and she T-bones him. Every Mother's Day that comes back to her, she thinks about that Mother's Day. She can see the child sitting beside that sliding door that took the direct impact of her car when it hit, and the dad just didn't see her, just turned. You know, the boy had a lot of injuries, but he finally recovered. But it was a long time for my wife to get in the car and drive again.
And
She was afraid to drive.
You know, PTSD is our body's natural reaction to something that's not natural. We see something that is not normal, and our body reacts to it. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, and people don't realize that. There's nothing wrong with you. Your body saw something crazy, and it's reacting to it.
You'll have these experiences where you don't remember a single thing, and then all of a sudden the slightest smell, or in your case, Mother's Day, triggers it.
I had
and
a
it just comes
patient
back.
that I started running when I was on the ambulance. I would run her once or twice a week, and it seemed like she was always, I don't know how many times they were running her when I wasn't working, but I worked her almost every shift, and she was having heart pain. And she just swears she's having heart issues, having some kind of heart attack. I tried to talk to her, are you under stress? Is it anxiety? Are you sure? She had a heart monitor. They couldn't find anything. Finally, I asked her, I said, have you had any traumatic events happen? She said, oh, I was held at gunpoint. I was robbed.
Ooh.
I said, there you go. I was like, you should probably go and talk to somebody and see if you can work with that. I ended up seeing her probably a couple months later by accident at the bank, and she said she went and got counseling, she got a medication, and she's been fine.
As they say, it's the war within.
Yeah. You know, my wife has made a few comments recently. She says, it seems like when I spend any time out here longer than just a short visit, I talk in my sleep all night long. There's a psychiatrist that goes in my church, it's in our men's Bible study, and we were talking about when I had my accident. That's how I lost this leg, was in an automobile accident. I had a tree head on at 55 miles an hour and survived it somehow. And I was in the hospital in Atlanta for quite a while. And I was back in Vietnam under the morphine. I shredded a straitjacket. They had to secure me to the bed in ICU with looked like fire hose straps that they had on me, because they said anything they put on me, just rip it off.
Can't hold a Marine down.
Well, you know, you get adrenaline. You know,
Yeah.
I really thought that I had been captured, and they were putting me in a cage and were going to put me in one of those creeks they had in Vietnam, where they used to submerge it and put the bamboo poles down inside that were sharpened with human feces on the end of it. So if you bumped into it, you were going to get infected. And that's what I thought was happening. I was never in a POW camp, but I knew what they did. I'd seen pictures and results and film, and that's what was going on in my head. And we were talking about this, and this guy in my Bible studies, it was a psychiatrist. He says, "You got PTSD." He says the problem is it doesn't come out till you're not conscious. He says in your unconscious states, like sleep, like when I was under the influence of that medication,
It unlocks it.
It unlocks it. It all comes out. Said all you've done is some just put it back and not talk about it.
Yeah. We always
And if
say
you
that
don't
there's
get it out,
this little box, like especially in the fire service, this is how I used to explain it to the guys, and I did police everybody. I would say you have this box right here in your head. So every call that we run, we shove it down into that box, and then eventually you run this one call, or you have this one thing that just triggers. You try to shove it in that box, and it doesn't fit, and it makes the whole box explode.
Well, and I think you explained it very clinically before, and that is your body's natural way of protecting it.
Yeah.
So what it does is it's creating this barrier around that traumatic event, but then when you are unconscious, that barrier, you can't willfully pack that away.
And I told her the other day, I says, matter of fact, she's sleeping in a different bedroom right now because of it, because I'm keeping her awake all night long. But she says, and sometimes I move too much. And she gets really worried if I move too much, because she's afraid I'm just going to sling an arm over and just cold cock her or something.
Right.
But still, these are things that she's paying attention to, that to me, sometimes I wake myself up talking. And I don't know. I says, just record me. I want to see what I'm saying. I want to see what it's about.
That's a good
Because
might
I'd
help
like
you
to know,
connect those dots.
to be able to find out exactly what I'm talking about. Is something out here triggering that to open that box and do that?
So,
Which is not a bad thing. But it's better to have it out, because I'm in that age group you're talking about, the average age in South
And one
Carolina.
of the things they try to teach people is to know their triggers, because that's what helps them deal with it. By knowing their triggers, they can be aware of their triggers, and that can help them find coping mechanisms when it is triggered.
Right.
When something happens that's like, okay, I'm kind of freaking out. I know what happened. This is what triggered me. I know how I got to deal with this. I got to get out of here.
so
Or whatever it may be.
and again, I'm obviously not a psychologist. I play one on TV.
You play it.
The thought process is what we're trying to do is trying to fix something that's broken. We're trying to reconnect that, and it's your body's natural way in that subconscious state of trying to put those answers together to figure it out. Now, they've identified three major issues that cause suicide in veterans. The first one, which I'm guilty of myself, is you almost instantly gain 30 to 50 pounds when you get out. It happens. Every guy that I served with in the infantry, we're in incredibly good shape, but you're not working out anymore. You're not burning the calories that you burned, but your appetite stays the same. So then that starts this thing where you no longer move, and you don't have that activity and that movement, which is a really important thing. But the third one that really affects people, and this is the most lethal one, is you lose your sense of purpose. When you put that uniform on, you're working, there's a real strong sense of purpose. My story was, I have the opposite of PTSD. I have survivor's guilt. I got out of the Marine Corps in 1999. Wanted to make a whole career out of it. I went through the Officer Candidate program. I was enlisted. I did everything I could do. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore because I'm not getting deployed. I'm not getting a chance to do what I learned about. So I got out. Well, what happens 2 years later? September 11th, 2001. And I went to a lot of funerals of my buddies from the units that I served in, and it was really tough because I felt like I left that gap, but and they filled it, and they ultimately gave their life for their country. So I joined the fire department, and my thing was the front lines of the battle is no longer in some desert over in Afghanistan. It's in our backyard. And the beauty of being in the fire service, I told people in the Marine Corps, we take stuff that's really fun and have an amazing talent of making it as miserable as possible. In the fire service, we take stuff that's really miserable, but we're always having a good time. We're always sitting on the tailboard smoking and joking. So tell us a little bit about your journey to the fire service and kind of talk us through your career and what you've experienced.
I actually found the fire service late in life. I I started with, I would say, disaster services with the American Red Cross when Hurricane Katrina happened. One of my friends, she comes to me, she says, "We have to do something." I was like, I was a general manager at a glass company. I was like, "What am I supposed to do here in Georgia?" You know, so I was like, what am I supposed to do? She's like, "I don't know, we got to do something." So a day later, she calls me. She's like, "I signed us up to join the Red Cross." I said, "Okay." So we joined the Red Cross. Next thing I know, we're in a week's worth of training. Next thing I know, we're deploying to Mississippi, and I have no idea what we're doing. So I ended up working down in Mississippi for, I was there probably almost 5 weeks, serving meals out of emergency response vehicle, I did about 500 meals a day to these people who had lost everything. They were in flood zones, and or in zero flood zones. They were not in flood zones, that's what I meant to say. And their homes were just covered in water, and they lost everything. So seeing this, when I came back, it was life-changing for me because I've always been the kind of person that takes care of people. I've never found my niche where to kind of do it. So I stayed with the Red Cross. I was with them for a long time. Some of my friends where we lived were firefighters, and my daughter became a junior firefighter. And she kept telling me, she's like, "Mom, you should come volunteer." And she kept telling me that. And finally, I was like, okay. I was like, we'll check it out. I went to the fire station. My very first night at the fire station, they let me cut up a car. They put some bunker gear on me, and they said, "Here, you want to cut up a car?" I was like, "Yes, I want to cut up a car." Yep. I was hooked, and that was it. So
All right, if you're outside that car,
I joined their Firefighter 1 class that was starting, and the rest is history. I made it a mission to get hired on at the fire department, and that was...
And you're a mom.
14 years. Yeah, I was a single mom.
That's the best job in the world, though, man.
Yeah. I was a single mom raising 3 daughters, becoming a certified firefighter at the age of 34.
Gosh, you're a warrior.
You're a superhero.
Well, Ron, as we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners and our people that maybe don't know as much about OPFOB?
Well, if you haven't been out to OPFOB, the address is kind of tricky. You just have to go to our website, and it's on there. One address says Okatee, South Carolina. That's our business mailing address, but our physical address is in Ridgeland, South Carolina. But you can find that on the opfob.org website. And just come out, just show up. We're here. Somebody's here all the time, and especially these next 22 days. We'd love for you to come out and join us and sit around the fire pit. And if you're a veteran and you're struggling, even if you're not struggling, if you're a veteran, you want to bring your wife and your kids, if you got a service dog or a dog, bring your dog out. There's lots of places for them to run around. There's a lot of things.
As you've seen my dog running through the frames.
There's a lot of things out here to do. And, this place is near and dear to JR's heart. It's near and dear to my heart. The day that JR got the phone call about his buddy down in Savannah that had killed himself from Blackwater, I was with him down at the pistol range. And it was a tough call, and I'm glad that I was here for him when that happened. And, I just put my arms around him and hugged him, and I said, "Hey, man, just let it out." But that's what we do. If you want to come out here and sit and tell jokes and have a good time and laugh and have a good time, that's all well and good. But if you want to come out here and sit down and bare your soul and talk to somebody about what's going on in your life and how we can help you, this Sergeant Major was here a couple of months ago that wrote this book called Marines Don't Cry. And the point of his title of his book was "That's BS, Marines Cry." We all cry. The biggest thing is we men, we're so gung-ho that we can't let it out. That's the worst thing we can do, is hold it in. There's nothing like a good cry, I'm going to say probably the best cry I ever had was in 1968 when I came home and my mother had died while I was in Vietnam, and I came home for her funeral. And I cried. I mean, I boohooed. I literally boohooed. And my wife was there with me in the hotel room. She held me. She cried with me. She consoled me. And she put me back on that plane and sent me back to Vietnam when the time came.
Well, I think it's the most masculine and heroic thing you can do is have the courage to be bare your soul with other people or something.
And my wife had never seen me cry, ever. Not that I didn't want to sometimes, but we just got this. Yeah, we cry. Marines cry. Soldiers cry. Not just ladies. Ladies can cry, because it's a love story. But you know, us guys we don't cry over love stories. Well, we might, but no. But
I don't
really,
know. I saw that movie Rudy, and I cried like a baby.
Well, this OPFOB is a great place to come and socialize
And you
just,
don't meet a stranger here.
no, you don't, and just spend time together.
And we're not just limited to combat veterans.
That's
This
right.
place is for, we have police officers who come here, we have firefighters, anybody in that line of duty, and then also spouses.
Yep.
We recognize, you know, JR is the co-founder with Stephanie, his wife.
His wife.
She has seen that journey that of what happened when you have a warrior that's suffering, because they suffer also.
Sure.
So, Amy, you want to share anything with us before we wrap up here, and kind of what OPFOB means to you and your involvement with the organizations you're with?
So it's just, I cannot stress how important peer support is. Over all my years, and everything I talk about is just from experience. I'm not a clinician, no degrees, nothing like that, no psychiatrist, anything like that, no formal training other than we do teach a suicide intervention class, but that's it. I speak from experience, from the people I've met, the people I've talked to, and I cannot stress how many times I've seen peer support make a huge difference in somebody's life. Having that brother or sister that they can call at a moment's notice and feel comfortable calling or comfortable crying to. And with places like this, you find those people.
Yeah, and sometimes you're the one helping others, and by
Sometimes
helping
they-
others,
they
they're
help
helping
you.
Yeah, absolutely right.
It's a share.
It's
Tell us a little bit more about the organization. How can people find out about it?
So we are Fight the War Within Foundation. We're at fightthewarwithinfoundation.org. I'm sorry, fightthewarwithin.org. You can find us on Facebook. We do a lot of different things. We have a kayak trip coming up. We invite anybody, it's on us. We have a company called Backwater Expeditions in Rankin, and they donate their time and their kayaks to take all these guys out. A lot of the guys that do the tours are veterans, so they love what we do and they support it by doing this with us. We'll be doing that June 18th. You can find that on our Facebook page. All of our events are on our Facebook page. We have a huge ball coming up in July. It's our anniversary. We do it every year on July around the 30th. Organization was, I told you, was founded because of Miranda's husband. His birthday is July 30th, so it's kind of a way to celebrate him. One of the things we want to do is keep these warriors' memories alive. So we do have a warrior table there that we set up for people that can sponsor a spot for their warrior that's passed, be it first responder or military. Because a lot of times the people who die by suicide aren't recognized. They aren't.
There's stigma.
Yeah, they're stigma. They're just as important as anybody else. It's still in the line of duty because of everything that they've
Their
done.
wounds killed them. Some people have killed them faster from a bullet, and other times it takes years.
Absolutely. So we've actually started a memorial wall for them.
Have you really?
Yeah, we have Tosa Coffee Company. It's located in Richmond Hill. It's a better-known coffee company. We do our coffee and camaraderie there once a month. He's let us place the memorial there. So we're working on that. We're doing a lot of things. We're doing anything and everything that we can to basically keep people alive. Because
Wonderful.
if we, like you say, if we can save one, that's great. But we want more.
I got to tell you, it's an honor to meet both of you, for you to take your time out to, in your effort and the passion that I can just feel coming from both of you about we're all in this together, and we can't let that happen just because you're having a bad day or a bad week or a bad year. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and I think that's great. Well, as we wrap up here, you guys look here at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the address of OPFOB. It's opfob.org. We're asking everybody to go ahead that sees this program and live cast tonight, go to opfob.org to the donate section. What we're trying to do is get 22 donors per day that are willing to donate $20 a month. If we can do that, that money will come right back here to OPFOB. Nobody gets paid out here at OPFOB. We are a 100% volunteer organization, and we want to continue to have opportunities like what we've got tonight, and to continue to grow and to reach more and more of our veterans and first responders. And for those of you that are in the Low Country, please come on out. We'll be here for the next 21 days now, I guess it is.
21 days.
So with that, have a wonderful evening, and we'll hope to see everybody back at our live stream tomorrow.
That was